they're going to test the K-State defense. This will be the biggest test that they've had when it comes to an opposing rushing attack. But obviously, we've talked about it over the last week or so. K-State's rush defense right now, and sacks attribute to this, obviously, but number 3 in the country, allowing 2.53 yards per carry.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Fremont. I am John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young and Cole Manbeck. West Virginia preview time. K-State is on the road again, this time going to Morgantown, West Virginia, to try and get to 6-1 on the season. They've got moonshine out there, but you know that can't hold a candle to Ben Holiday Bottled in Bond Bourbon from our friends at Holiday Distillery. So make sure you've got that ready to go this weekend for your watch parties, or if you're headed out to Morgantown. And get it at the tailgate for the KU game, which is coming up quite fast next week, in fact. You can grab 360 vodka as well. All great stuff from our friends at Holiday Distillery, who are great K-State folks who support us here. So thank you to them, as always. Welcome back to Derek Young, back from Boulder, experiencing the entire Coach Prime experience in person. Before we get going into headlines and all that, DY, what was it like rubbing elbows next to CC Sabathia and Cameron and Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony and whoever else was there at the game?
It was funny because I have two stories. So before the game, we're walking, and by the way, the operation there is a total, circus to get your credential, get to the press box, anything like that. They make everything as complicated as possible, especially parking and getting to and from the stadium as well. You basically have to ride a city bus with Colorado fans, and so that was a joy. But when we were walking, you have to walk down the Colorado tunnel as part of the way to get to the press box, which is interesting. And we literally walked by CC Sabathia, me, Mason, and Drew. But we all had to do a double take, and then we kind of asked each other, what, did we just see CC Sabathia? And he's like 100 pounds lighter too. So shout out to him for all the weight he lost. It was skinny CC. The other one, the story I could tell is actually at the hotel bar the night before. I was getting a drink, and it kind of is a microcosm of what Colorado fans are now. There was 5 other people in there. There was 4 ladies and a guy. The guy happened to be cousins with a former UCLA player, and they were going to the game because they like Prime. The 4 ladies were from Montana. One of them is a big Prime fan, so they said they got drunk a few months ago. We're like, let's go to a Colorado game. And so that's why they were there. So it's definitely, their fan base right now is definitely more Prime fans than Colorado fans, which is not a surprise to us, but I definitely got some confirmation on that.
Huh. CC Sabathia must have cut out the breakfast cereal. I remember one of my favorite sports stories of all time was CC Sabathia in an interview claiming that he ate an entire box of Captain Crunch for breakfast every day, which hey, I mean, I get it. That stuff's pretty good. But, I can't imagine that was great fuel for his pitching career, but he seemed to do okay. I don't know.
Who's this Cameron guy that you guys have been talking about, though? They showed him.
I mean, he's a rapper, but, I feel like that, was he a 90s, early 2000s? Yeah, beginning his career in the early 1990s as Killer Cam. Let me see.
He was never a big deal.
I thought I was opening myself up to John just rolling his eyes at me for not knowing.
No, that one is a little more off the path.
Yeah, I mean, so he's got, that Oh Boy. Okay, I remember Oh Boy, but I really just remember the female that's singing on it.
Yeah, it was an annoying song, actually.
So, it's got 100, Cole, he's got 2 songs that have over 100 million plays on Spotify. So, I mean, big. He's got over 2 million monthly listeners, but not massive.
All right. Well, that makes me feel a little better. Nick also says he doesn't know who he was, so that makes me feel better that I didn't know. I knew everybody else, guys.
Okay, well, but Nick is too young. You are not too young. So
yeah, actually, that would be our heyday almost in terms of listening.
Yeah. Did you ask Vanessa?
No, I was too nervous during the game, so I didn't ask. I'll ask her later on today. But, when I'm in game mode watching the game, I don't have a lot of conversations not related to the game. Everything is specific about like, oh, should we do this here? Should we do that there? Like, I just constantly think about the game. So like they were showing the celebrities and I just could not care.
Well, you said Vanessa watched the game with you, right?
She did. Yeah. She probably mentioned it and I just blocked everything out related not to the game.
Did she have any answers for your questions? Like, what should we do here? Yeah.
Well, so what happens is Brody stayed up for the whole game. He took a nap during the day, and what happens is I just got up and I went and sat right next to Brody, away from everybody else, because my neighbors came over too, and at one point, like, they were having like a conversation with Vanessa, and I wasn't able to focus as much as I wanted, so I got up and moved right next to Brody, where we were talking about the game and dissecting everything, and my neighbor, who I love, he was like, "What, Cole? Like, we can't have a conversation? It's halftime." I was like. It's like, well, I'm just thinking about the game. So yeah, I don't know. It's a different experience to watch games with me, and John's experienced it. I don't know, DY, if we've actually watched a K-State game like together, not in the press box.
I mean, what about the Fremont was birthed while watching a particularly exciting K-State Iowa State basketball game once upon a time.
Oh, that's true. We did watch a basketball game together. Well, that's just a different. That was a different.
We were heavily invested, Cole. I don't know what you're talking about. We were very invested at the end of the Bruce Weber era, sitting around. What was it? Brewbakers,
yeah,
in Lenexa. Not a sponsor, could be, and yeah, that's where we decided to do Fremont. That's where we came up with the idea.
That is true. That's where it was birthed. That was 2021 or 22, right? It was Bruce's last year.
Hellacious comeback win.
K-State won, yeah, in Ames. I can't remember all the details of it, but yeah, you guys were talking to me back then about like, hey, we can launch this podcast, and it's obviously grown far greater than I think any of us would have ever expected. So good idea by you guys, because I think I was a skeptical one of it when you approached me.
Yeah, we're rambling here a little bit, but one of the memories I have of that, if you want to really know the genesis of Fremont, like I'm talking to Kurtz about it, and Cole's there. I was like, man, we need a third guy though.
Well, wait, what? I was gonna say, well, we threw a different third person out first.
Wait,
this was in front of you, and you were like, DY, I'm right here.
Really? I forgot all about that.
Oh, come on.
Because I just assumed you'd be too busy to take on that kind of responsibility.
That's who we were talking about first, Cole.
Wow.
I knew that. I knew that would infuriate you. Yeah,
you knew that though. Yeah.
I just forgot. That is so incredibly insulting that I just am going to go ahead and resign right now. I didn't know I was I was option 4. I was like the second choice. I forgot all about it.
But in fairness, like I said it at the time, I just assumed that you couldn't because you have 3 kids in your job.
Think about it like this, Cole. I mean, we've been talking all week about the secondary injuries. Justice James got hurt. You could argue that he's been better than Keenan Garber this year, even though he's not technically, CB2. So just think about it like that sort of situation, okay?
So I'm Justice James. I'm Fremont. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well,
I mean, obviously I'm Jacob Parrish, and DY's Marquise Siegel, and then you're Justice James. That's what we've got.
Oh, you get to be Jacob Parrish. Oh, cool.
Well, we all got hurt.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I feel like I'm Julius Brents. I'm 6'3", like Julius. So
out for the year. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, okay. I could be Will Lee. I'm about to be Will Lee on your ass and just walk. So, all right, well, just shove and leave.
I mean, since nobody's claimed it, I guess I'm Terrence Newman then. Sorry about that. Maybe a little more Chris Canty. Okay. Headline number 1. This team, DY, I feel like grew up quite a bit last week, finding a way to make the plays down the stretch, which is what we talked about going into the game, that you and I had doubts that they'd be able to figure out something like that. And I'll be honest, I did not have a lot of faith that they were going to put together the drive that they did, especially when the kickoff, God bless Devon Rice, but when the kickoff gets run out to the 15, I was just like, oh boy, all right, this is not good. Instead, they scored too fast, almost there, but a lot of growth and maturation, I think, had to happen there in a tough environment. I would also be curious to know your thoughts on like how that environment compared to BYU. Like, Is it at least similar type of environment that they made those plays in?
Yeah, the noise was pretty good. Now, BYU was more consistently loud, like from start to finish, but they also had more to cheer for than Colorado. So I'm guessing that kind of plays a factor in it as well. What I would say is you're right. I thought the team really grew up. I was wrong. I said that they would learn from BYU and stay in the fight and not let it snowball on them, but they in the moment when it like crunch time and it's time to find the place to win the game, I thought they'd have to kind of learn and go through that a little bit. Like, you compete and stay in it this time, but maybe not figure out a way to win. But they skipped that step. So that really shows that, in my opinion, that they have significantly grown up. It also shows to me that in that situation that they are able to connect with a long touchdown pass, that they are significantly making strides in the passing game, in my opinion, to be able to deliver that kind of play in that moment. So, yeah, but I'm with you. As soon as Colorado scored after the Avery Johnson interception, I thought it was probably over. And then I saw the kick return. I definitely thought it was over. And then they pull off that play, 2 or 3 plays later, and it started with a nice little pass to DJ Giddens that was schemed up pretty well, and Colorado blew the coverage. I was like, okay, we got a shot. And then they score, and I'm like, yeah, just like you. Oh, shoot! I think now they probably scored too quick, and I was I was certain that Colorado was going to score, especially since, to be honest, Kansas State had yet to stop Colorado in that half. I think Colorado scored on every possession besides the one that Shedeur Sanders threw a bad interception,
which they were driving onto and got the score there, and he just sailed the throw. And yeah, I mean, you probably felt like K-State wasn't going to score, DY, because traditionally they have not scored in that situation. Late in game, needing that big drive. It's been quite some time if you think about it. I mean, you could look back at Texas last year and say they made a big couple of drives, actually, because they got it in field goal range with like 4 minutes left, and then they missed the field goal to tie the game. And then they still got back in field goal range after getting the ball with 1:18 left last year and kicked the field goal that tied it and sent it to overtime in Texas. But that is the only time in the Kleiman era, guys, that they have actually had a drive like that on the final drive of a tied game, or when they're trailing by 1 score with an opportunity to take the lead or to tie it up, that they had done so. They had 9 opportunities, and that's the only time they scored any points was that game at Texas in 2023. The other 8 drives resulted in interceptions, punts, time expired, fumbles lost, etc. K-State didn't score in the other 8 drives. In the final 6 minutes of games when K-State was trailing, K-State was 0-21 under Chris Kleiman going into that moment. They get the ball with 3:14 left in the game, and they go down the field and score in about 50 seconds, 84 yards in 3 plays. And so we haven't seen that really before. Now, I say that, like, I would imagine most coaches' records are very low win probabilities or winning percentages when they trail with 6 minutes or less, but it feels even worse when you're K-State. And so that was a huge drive, obviously, in the context of the season. But also when you think about, you had veteran quarterbacks that couldn't make that drive happen in the past, and Avery Johnson did, and this K-State offense did. And that's only going to help the confidence level of this team and help them continue to grow and evolve when they get in that situation in the future. Hopefully you're not in that situation much, but when you need a drive, kind of a legacy drive, you know that you've done it before, and you can hopefully do it again if you need it. So just a huge segment there. And then, yeah, I mean, DY, the most incredible thing to me was not only do they score so quickly, but Colorado doesn't even achieve a first down on the ensuing drive. It's a 4-and-out.
Yeah, well,
was the pass interference? Was the pass interference?
I mean, I said afterwards, I thought it was like 50-50. I wouldn't have complained a ton if they called it, but I can also see how Keenan Garber is turning around and making a play on the ball. I think that's a pretty 50-50 judgment call.
Live, I thought it was. When you look at the replay, I think it's more 50-50, as you said. I think, to be honest, I don't think the ref could have gone wrong in that instance. I don't think PI would have actually been a wrong call, but I don't think not calling it was a bad call either.
You know what probably helped even in the slightest, guys? It happened on K-State's sideline.
Yes, so that helped. And I think their feet getting tangled up probably played a role too. So
yeah, I don't know. I didn't think. I mean, look, if you were a K-State fan and you're in their shoes and that happens, we're going to be asking for the flag.
Yeah, you know what that call, especially at home. It's
yeah.
weird. Yeah.
So,
I would also be frustrated that in that case, Avery Johnson on 4th and 6 threw the ball 30 yards down the sideline.
That's another thing. Very weird. It was 4th and 6, and they're throwing basically a go route. Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, most of their other 3rd and 4th down conversions in the game were shorter passes that ended up being wide open. They had that 4th and 3 conversion where we almost got to Shedeur, and then he just dumps it to Wester, and they get 15 yards on the play earlier in the game.
Part of it's probably they didn't want to throw over the middle because they were running out of time, because on the first couple of plays, it just felt like they were really taking their time, too.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that one of the biggest things there was they have him in a 3rd and 6, and Colorado gets a false start because they're terrified of what Brendan Mott's done to them all game. And so then they get in a 3rd and 11, and the next play is a check down. So then you're in a 4th and 5 with one play, and you can win the game. And K-State stepped up.
And they I remember them lollygagging back to line of scrimmage, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of a weird drive. I do have one more point to hit on in the specific growth of the team here before we leave this headline. But first, we have to tell you about our good friends at Home Field Apparel. You can go to homefieldapparel.com to get the best college gear around. They've got 50-plus K-State designs there. It is the best gear around. You'll see a ton of it at Bill Snyder Family Stadium and at Bramlage Coliseum this year, so make sure you are ready and looking good. And wow, okay, DY was wearing yellow again, and I thought of the 100-plus teams that he could also choose from at homefieldapparel.com. This might be Pitt again, which was going to, kind of gross me out a little bit.
They hurt me. I'm never wearing that one again.
But instead, it is our friends from the desert, the Arizona State Sun Devils, which I like. What a good story. Kenny Dillingham, that's a fun team. Cam Scadaboo is really fun. Sam Levitt, cool story, kind of discarded at Michigan State. I'm on board with that. I assume that means we'll hear more about that in the picks segment coming up. Oh, no. Okay. All right. No significance to it. Spoiler alert.
Off to a good start. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you can get your Sun Devils gear and your Wildcats gear at homefieldapparel.com and use promo code 3MON24 for 15% off your first order. That is promo code 3MON24 for 15% off your first order, and we are back in just a moment.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your number one source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com. The best part of finding something new is sharing it with your friends. That's exactly what it feels like when you discover that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless service for just $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. It's such an awesome deal, there's no way you can keep it to yourself. So friends, don't let friends overpay for wireless. And you can say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans and switch to Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you and your friends with premium wireless plans starting at just $15 a month. And if you're worried about bringing over your old phone or your phone number and personal contacts, you can transfer all of that when switching to Mint Mobile. So ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/3MAW. That's mintmobile.com/3MAW. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/3MAW. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
All right, we're going to make this our top storyline of the week, brought to you by our friends at Alenco for all your home improvement needs. Make sure you find our friends at Alenco, alencohome.com, ALENCO home.com. On the topic of the team growing up, I mean, specifically for Avery Johnson, I think that is a very important thing to have seen happen, not just because he engineers the drive to win the game, but because he did it by throwing the ball. Shahan Raja said, as that play happened, like, hey, that's the thing about Avery Johnson. Sometimes he'll do that. And in the near future, he's going to be doing that a lot more consistently. And back to Cole's numbers that he had about how few times K-State has excelled in those situations. I mean, Skylar Thompson had some moments, right? I guess you think about like the 2017 Iowa State game, but they were few and far between. And like, we always felt like, particularly last year, when it was a close game, late game situation, Will Howard just wasn't quite able to get it done. And I don't mean to make this a thing where we pick on Will Howard, but it is also a bit ironic that we're talking about that in light of what happened to him on the same day, the same night out at Autzen Stadium in Oregon. So it's just, it feels like Avery Johnson, it's all about the ceiling with him, right? And that he's got this higher ceiling, and I think a lot of that showed. Their faith in him being the guy this year was kind of backed up by the way that he performed in that moment.
Yeah, if you told anyone before the year that Avery Johnson wouldn't be able to use his legs in a game, especially against Colorado at night on the road, both teams 4-1, and that they won the game because they were able to throw the ball, I think you'd be like, okay, this team's probably going somewhere. So I think it's fair to have that reaction now. Now everyone's going to be like, well, but DJ Giddens. To be honest, most of DJ Giddens' production was also in the first half and not in the second half as well. If you look at the second half numbers, once Colorado loaded up the box and basically went to a 5-man front, I mean, DJ Giddens wasn't getting his as much either, and rightfully so. It's really tough to do. So they needed the passing game to really close the game out, and it was there for them. And it was there for them against Oklahoma State when he threw for, 260 yards and 3 touchdowns? So, yeah, I'm with you. I think the passing game is starting to really come on strong. The numbers in the last 2 games are starting to reflect what Cole thought was going to happen before the year, right? He's kind of gotten that in the last 2 games a little bit. So, I'd be remiss if we didn't even mention Jace Brown as well. He's got, 4 of his 6 games, he's got at least 60 receiving yards. He catches 6 balls for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's probably the best game for a K-State receiver in some time. I think you guys went over that already a little bit. So that's playing a role as well. And look, people have been frustrated about the passing game here and there, us too. But at the end of the day, you look up, it's Avery Johnson's first season as a starter. And considering that he'll be playing in a bowl game this year, he's on pace to break the single-season touchdown pass record in his first season.
Avery Johnson's last 2 games now, guys, 34 of 54 passing, 63% completion percentage, 483 yards through the air. That's 8.9 yards per pass. That's a tremendous number, 8.9 yards per pass, 5 touchdowns to the 2 interceptions. And both times, guys, I think an important call-out, following both interceptions, Avery Johnson was terrific. Now, this is a smaller sample size at Colorado, but he responded immediately and had the one drive that obviously ended up winning the game, going right down the field in 3 plays, 84 yards. So he bounced back from a mistake both times against Oklahoma State and now Colorado. You think about the second half of the game, because I think in the first half, K-State had maybe 70 yards passing, and they didn't need to throw the ball. They were controlling the ground game and dominating up front, and DJ Giddens was dynamic. But in the second half of the game, they had completions of 33 yards, 23 yards, 34 yards, and 50 yards. A lot of explosive plays through the air. And Jace Brown represented a 33-yard completion, 23, and 50. So he made up 3 of those 4. And that, he ends up with 6 for 121 and the 2 touchdowns. Jace Brown was terrific. He made a really nice, it was a nice throw by Avery too. It was an RPO. But his hands, he had to reach out and snag that one on the next to last drive going over the middle where he got 23 yards on that one. Another really nice ball by Avery was an RPO that he, got hurt on when he threw it, and it was a 33-yard completion. And then obviously the one to Jace where you saw the adjustment by Avery, right? Because on the first play of that drive, he just so slightly overthrew it. I mean, it was a pretty good throw to Jace going deep. And then the next time he throws it deep to him 2 plays later, he leaves more air under it and lets Jace just go up and trust him to make a play. And Jace did it. And Curry talked about it on our pod that ran out earlier this week. If you go check it out, where we break down that play and just how savvy of a play that is by Jace Brown to kind of wall off, seal off his defenders, slow down, and make him go through his back, allowing him to complete the catch, but also drawing the PI. So, yeah, I mean, Jace Brown and Avery are becoming a pretty special duo together.
Very clear that they've got quite a connection. We appreciate our good friends at Elenco for all your home improvement needs. Local company based out of KC, owned by K-Staters. They've been locally owned since 1986, when most in their industry have been bought out by national companies. So if you need new windows or a bathroom remodel, they have premium window replacements and Kohler Luxstone shower systems. They can get you new siding on your home, and you don't need to be in Kansas City or Manhattan. They're Western Missouri, Northeast Kansas, and the entire KC metro. Go to alencohome.com. That's ALENCO home.com, ALENCO home.com to check out their services, including free estimates, and give Sam a call, 913-961-2165. All right, headline number 2. this is a tricky situational spot, again, I would suggest for K-State. You are traveling, if you're thinking about where you played last, you're traveling across 3 time zones here to get to the Eastern time zone. Road trip, night game at West Virginia. Yes, the environment and atmosphere around there is not the greatest right now from the fans. They are very frustrated with Neil Brown after another loss to a ranked opponent. He seems to be very much a tease. He will get West Virginia fans very gassed up, thinking that they can win one of these big games, and they just never quite do. But when you combine K-State letdown potential coming off of the Colorado game, having to travel again, tough environment, night game, capable enough team, it does feel like another one of those spots that is going to be pretty tricky.
Yeah, I chalked it up as a loss before the season started, right? Just because of the dynamics of the game and where it was positioned. Not only is it right after a big game at Colorado, but it's just before you play your arch rival in KU as well. So it's kind of in that sandwich spot that sometimes gives teams quite a bit of trouble. It's a second leg of a back-to-back road, which is tough in and of itself, but then you add in the time zone differentials that you're going across. It is a very challenging spot, no doubt about it, because you get back from Colorado to Vanier after 5 a.m., probably on little to no sleep, unless you're better than I am in a charter and can sleep very well in a plane. You're not going to have a whole lot of sleep, so you almost got to use Sunday to sleep. So you lose that day of kind of preparation and recovery as much as you would, and then you have to leave on Friday because it's a road game, right? And so that's another day of preparation because you're traveling that's kind of gone, and then you gotta circle the wagon, so to speak, and get yourself back up after flying that, which is their longest flight of the year, to Pittsburgh, and then bus to Morgantown because I believe you can't charter into Morgantown. So it's a different experience. That they got some hurdles to clear. While I know the night game probably makes the environment a little bit tougher at West Virginia, just because obviously they're going to be up at night for a night game more than they would an 11 o'clock or 2:30 game. I get that. But because of everything I just said and getting longer recovery time and all that, I think the night game really helps K-State in this case.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a reason why, like, the advanced models actually project this to be a more challenging game for K-State than Colorado. Kelly Ford's power ratings model has K-State as the number 21 team in the country, West Virginia ranked number 35, and gives K-State a 52% chance to win. They had a higher probability going to Colorado. The SP Plus has West Virginia as the number 43 team nationally, and K-State number 16, according to Bill Connolly's SP Plus at ESPN. Projects K-State by 5.3 points with a score of 32-27, gives K-State a 32-27 victory. Recall against Colorado, it projected out to be a 34-25 victory and a 71% win probability by the SP Plus. So this projects out to be a more challenging game. And people probably also need to remember that West Virginia, while they are 3-3, they have played one of the toughest schedules, and probably the toughest schedule in the Big 12, and maybe one of the tougher schedules in the country when you consider that they played Penn State and Iowa State, and then a Pitt team that is also ranked now. All 3 losses to ranked opponents, and those 3 teams are a combined 18-0 this season. So they have another tough test, obviously, with K-State coming into Morgantown. And to me, it's what's the mindset of this West Virginia team after, a big night against Iowa State in Morgantown, a chance to really cement themselves at the top of the Big 12 standings and get off to a 3-0 start in league play. And then they got off to a good start and then kind of collapsed and lose that game really 28-10. They get a late time score in the game. But what's the mindset of that fan base? What's the mindset of that football team? How do they come into this game? Because they still have a chance in the Big 12 standings, in the Big 12 picture overall, but when you see 3 losses on the resume through 6 games, you start to wonder, was last year's 9-4 record more of a fluke? And DY, I know your position on that, and what's their position on Neil Brown as a fan base? So what's the energy level? It's a night game. It is a tricky spot for all the reasons you guys already outlined, and then it's a West Virginia team that does have some talent.
I think the fans are, like John's kind of alluded to, and obviously he has the pulse of these fan bases much more than we do. I think they are definitely on the side of being more close to checked out than engaged at this point.
Yes.
But I don't think the team would be at this point. I think the team is still definitely invested.
the fans are checked out, and it's not. Look, Neil Brown stepped in it this week, even after the game on Saturday, because he had a quote that, I don't know. West Virginia fans are upset because he basically said, like, well, yeah, we lost the game, but I would hope that everybody had fun and the tailgates were great. And, it was kind of it seemed like Bruce Weber-esque. It's kind of like in the vein of Bruce Weber, sort of a quote there that, like, I don't think he really meant, I don't think it was that bad, but it just comes across. It's just like read the room kind of a thing. Read the room. And he didn't do that. So that pissed off their fan base even more this past week. So, and the way it was really described to me, and I thought that was pretty apropos. They're like, Neil Brown's just kind of a tease. Like, he will be good enough to beat teams that he probably should on his schedule and get you excited and thinking, all right, we're ready to take the next step. And then every time that next step is there, a game against Pitt, Penn State, Iowa State, they're just not ready to meet the moment. So that's kind of where West Virginia's been at. They are, God, what is the stat? I have it here on the sheet. Neil Brown has lost 8 in a row to ranked opponents by an average of 18 points per game. So that's a part of it too. They haven't been very close when they've gotten these big opportunities.
And they get another one. But I think getting that chance so immediately after probably benefits their mindset, because now it's like, all right, we have another chance to put this stupid record, stupid tagline about us. We can put it to bed once and for all. Like, we don't have to stew over that loss to Iowa State all that long.
I don't think that I think the team will be very fired up. I don't anticipate any issues like that with the team. Well, I guess the good news here, probably on two fronts. The injury report, DY, I know you were at the Coach Kleiman's press conference earlier this week. Injury report seemed encouraging for K-State, and West Virginia has some problems, some question marks with some of their best players, particularly on defense. But Chris Kleiman said everybody could be able to play. So, we're talking about Jacob Parrish, Marquise Siegel, Justice James, everybody in the secondary who went down on Saturday at Colorado. And then, obviously, it seems like Avery is going to be okay after his brief issue there. So between that and what we saw from West Virginia, I feel pretty good about where the injury report sits.
Yeah, and you'd have to think maybe Braden Lofton has a chance too. So that'll be something to follow as well. By the way, because I wasn't around you guys or wasn't able to do the post-game show, how much in panic mode were you two when Avery went down?
I started to climb my roof of my house, so looking for a ladder to just go up.
And because we didn't know it happened on the play before, so we all just assumed it was a non-contact injury. I was amazed that he came back and ran back on the field. Like, all right, cool.
Yeah. Non-contact. When you're thinking that, you're thinking, well, Quinn Ewers just missed a month of the season with an oblique strain, and you always know oblique injuries are one of the worst that you could have. And then as a quarterback, the torque as you try to twist and turn. And then he's a running quarterback too that can run. And I was in panic. Glad that he came back and he looked good. He delivered some absolute strikes with his arm afterwards. How they didn't utilize his legs after that, and that becomes a question: how comfortable are they running him for the next couple of weeks? As he might be a little bit nicked up. That's something that we'll just have to wait and see.
Then we'll get into it. West Virginia's defense.
Real bad against the pass.
Yeah, I was going to say they may just want to be throwing the ball anyway. Cole, I was digging it up here. This is bad work by me as a host. I know that it's arguably West Virginia's best safety and best defensive linemen that are both questionable. What are the names there?
Aubrey Burks is the safety. He's honorable mention all Big 12 last year. Garrett Green actually called him the best defender in the country. Aubrey Burks has only played one full game this season. He's been banged up though much of the year. And then TJ Jackson, defensive end, transfer from Troy. TJ Jackson had a lower leg injury at the Iowa State game. He got helped off the field. He ranked going into last week's game against Iowa State. TJ Jackson ranked 6th among Power 4 players in pressure rate with 22. And then he also has 9.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks this year. He was the Big 12 newcomer of the week after the Pittsburgh game this year. He had 4 tackles for loss against the Panthers in that game. He's a really good player. He's their best player up front. And it sounds like it's going to probably come down to a game time decision if he can give it a go. Neil Brown said he won't practice much at all this week, if at all. So if they don't have TJ Jackson, it is a huge loss for that West Virginia defense. And then Aubrey Burks, as Nick pointed out, he's the one that actually collapsed on the sideline a few weeks ago against KU in that game in Morgantown. That was a really scary sight because he was just on the sideline and went down. And hopefully, he can have a healthy rest of the season. But they're two good players. There's no doubt about it. If they don't have them both available, it's a big loss. Jaden Bray, transfer wide receiver from Oklahoma State. He's only got 2 catches for 88 yards this year. He will not play. He's out. So that's really the injury report for West Virginia. For K-State, as you guys already talked about, I think it sounds like they feel like they got good news on most of the guys going to be able to hopefully give it a go. Jacob Parrish is the one that I'm concerned about.
I would say I will still probably be in wait-and-see mode on Parrish and Justice James, just knowing what they kind of went down with. So we'll see.
Yeah. Parrish is obviously important. Now, it's a West Virginia team that is going to run the ball more than they're going to throw it. But they do have big strike ability through the air. That's their thing. They're
big strike ability and big mistake ability.
Exactly. That's why, when you look at their stats last year, they averaged Garrett Green had 53% completion percentage last year, which is a bad number, right? But he still averaged 8.7 yards per pass, which ranked 22nd in the country because his big strike ability, it was either home run or intermediate stuff incomplete. He struggles more with the intermediate passing game, but they get some big plays. I mean, there's a reason Hudson Clement, their leading wide receiver this year. Last year, he had 21 yards per catch. So it's big playability with that West Virginia team, and then obviously ground and pound attack. So
he takes a lot of risks.
Yeah.
And just my observation from watching West Virginia a lot so far this year is they will have moments where things click and they look really good. And Garrett Green is definitely at his best when he's getting outside the pocket and making plays, not dissimilar to Avery Johnson at this stage in his career like that. And they did it at the beginning of the Iowa State game. They went right down the field, had this great double-digit play drive for a touchdown to start the game. And then their center starts snapping it over people's head. He had 13 snaps apparently in the game that forced Garrett Green to jump up, or worse, some of those hit the ground. They were having a lot of issues there. Garrett Green will just make a horrific decision every once in a while where you're what are you doing throwing into there? West Virginia just finds ways to get in their own way. So I think that'll be the key. Don't give up the big plays against West Virginia. Make them continue to drive it, and they will shoot themselves in the foot.
That, and because they will shoot themselves in the foot, when they do, you have to come through in those cases. If they throw an interceptable ball, you need to intercept it. Because if you don't take advantage of those situations where they are making mistakes, then the times where they take the same risks and it works out for them will outweigh what you're doing, and then you're in trouble.
Well, to that point, West Virginia's -5 turnover margin on the season, which ranks 111th in the country and 15th in the Big 12. They are tied for 100. Now, this is on the defensive side. They're tied for 109th nationally with just 5 total turnovers forced, which is important because K-State has had some turnovers, so they don't force you into a lot of mistakes.
And I mean, offensively, we brought it up, Cole, but the thing that you have to worry about is the ground game between C.J. Donaldson, Jaheim White. They've got a pretty good ground attack, and Garrett Green. I mean, that's a unique part of this challenge. K-State's seen Shedeur Sanders and Noah Fafita, who can be pretty mobile to allow them to throw the ball. Kleiman always talks about scramble to throw. Garrett Green's definitely he's going to scramble to run. That's a dude that can really do a lot of damage with his legs.
It's almost the same. They're different players, but if you think about it, guys, K-State's got Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards, and DJ Giddens, and DJ's the more power back, Dylan the more speed guy. They've got Garrett Green at quarterback. They've got C.J. Donaldson, who's the bigger bruising running back, and then they've got Jaheim White, who averaged 7.7 yards per carry last year on 109 rushes, which was a really special number, and Garrett Green's a terrific runner. So they have a trio of guys that can really run the ball. As a team in 2023, they rushed for 2,976 yards on 565 carries, 5.3 yards per rush. They ranked 4th nationally last year and number 2 among Power 4 schools with 96 rushes of 10 or more yards. In 2023, they ranked 5th this season with 49 rushes of 10 or more yards. They're actually averaging more this season than last game on a per-game basis of 10 yards or more rushes. They were tied number 10 nationally with 26 rushes of 20 or more yards last year. Rushing explosiveness, they're number 52 nationally and number 4 in the Big 12. So they haven't had a ton of home run plays. But again, this is a team that can line up and run the football. They've got 244 carries for 1,263 yards this year, 5.2 yards per carry. Number 31 nationally in rushing success rate, number 4 in the Big 12. And Garrett Green, I mean, we'll get into the actual numbers here. Garrett Green is a terrific running quarterback. In fact, over his last 3 games, he has 260 yards on the ground on 37 carries, an average of 7 yards per rush. He's went over 8 yards per carry in each of the last 2 games. He's rushed for over 80 yards on the ground in each of the last 3 games. A guy that ran for over 700 yards last year. He's a tough, hard-nosed, physical runner that can really hit you with the big plays. So a terrific dual threat type quarterback. Again, the completion percentage is far lower than what you would like to see, and they've made a little bit of a jump there. But yeah, he's a really good player. He's rushed for nearly 1,800 yards in his career at West Virginia. He's averaged almost 6 yards per carry in his career. And then Jaheim White, as I already mentioned, he's averaging almost 6 yards per carry this year. He was 7.7 last year, and Donaldson's been at almost 5 yards per rush each of the last couple of seasons. So yeah, they're going to test the K-State defense. This will be the biggest test that they've had when it comes to an opposing rushing attack. But obviously, we've talked about it over the last week or so. K-State's rush defense right now, and sacks attribute to this, obviously, but number 3 in the country, allowing 2.53 yards per carry.
I'm sure Austin Romaine will be excited after he didn't get to play very much on Saturday because they weren't using linebackers against Colorado.
Yeah.
Totally different kind of challenge. Anything else on the West Virginia defense?
Well, I will say on the offensive front, I was surprised to see their offense is number 21 nationally and number 2 in the Big 12, according to ESPN's SP+. And the FEI of Brian Formose ranks them number 22 nationally offensively and number 3 in the Big 12. Kelly Ford has their offense 16th nationally and number 2 in the Big 12. Points per drive, though, I think they're just right around in the 50 range when it comes to that. So, and then,
because of the turnovers and not finishing drives.
Yeah. And yards per completion last year, I mentioned Garrett Green averaged 16.4 yards per completion. They were top 10 in the country in yards per completion. West Virginia defense, we haven't talked a lot about them. What we'll call out, like they've been decent against the run. They're allowing 3.9 yards per carry. It's 44th nationally. Now, they've had kind of a strange dynamic where Penn State gashed them in the opener, 222 yards on the ground, 5.3 yards per carry. Then Pitt only gets 78 yards rushing against them, 2.7 per rush. And it's like...
Pitt doesn't run the ball, though. They just throw with whole steam. Yeah.
Then KU, 247 on the ground and 5.3 per rush. I watched that whole game. I felt like KU could have just ran it at will on West Virginia. And then they go to Oklahoma State last week, 21 carries for 36 yards the week before. 1.7 per rush, but Ollie Gordon got hurt in the game. And honestly, Oklahoma State
and they haven't run the ball well either. It's the teams that haven't ran it on West Virginia haven't ran it on anyone.
Iowa State 45 for 129 against them, 2.9 per rush. So
except that one, but Iowa State that are throwing it this year.
Well, I haven't looked at what Iowa State's rushing numbers look like this year. I know it was Carson Hansen, who DYK State recruited, that ran for almost 100 against West Virginia last weekend. So they've been decent against the run. Now rushing explosiveness, they're in the 90s in the country, and they're number 75 in rushes of 10 or more yards allowed this season at 29. K-State's offense, guys, is top 5 in the country in rushing yards or rushing plays of 10 yards or more, and DJ Giddens is top 5 in a lot of those categories. So
and Kansas State just ran all over a team that was also stopping the run.
Yeah, so you're going to have a special rushing attack in Kansas State, which is averaging almost 6.4 yards per carry on the season against a solid West Virginia rush defense. But what will be such an interesting dynamic about this game, as I already mentioned earlier, is West Virginia's passing defense. They're allowing 9.6 yards per pass attempt in 5 games versus FBS opponents. That ranks 127th out of 134 FBS teams, last in the Big 12. Pass efficiency defense, 124th nationally, last in the Big 12, second worst among all Power 4 teams. 14.7 yards per completion allowed, 124th nationally, last in the Big 12. Passing explosives allowed, guys, dead last in college football among FBS teams, 134 out of 134. West Virginia has allowed 26 passes of 20 or more yards. That ranks in a tie for 125th nationally. Unfortunately, they're tied with K-State in that category. K-State also 125th nationally with 26 passes of 20 or more yards allowed.
I was about to say that. It's funny. The dynamic of this game is a little funny and odd because you have two teams that basically aren't stopping the passing game this year, but both of them would rather run the ball.
Yeah. And you go down the list, 13 passes allowed over 30 yards, ranks 118th in the country. 9 allowed over 40 yards, 131st out of 134 FBS teams. Other mention, I'll say, guys, 8.2% sack rate. That's number 22 nationally and number 1 in the Big 12. TJ Jackson, obviously a huge part of that. If they do not have him, that pass rush will suffer, and that would obviously be a benefit for Kansas State. So decent rush defense, horrible pass defense.
Sack rate is the key number there because I think just quantity of sacks, I think Kansas State leads the Big 12.
Yeah, K-State's got 18 sacks, 1 point or 3 per game, which is top 15 in the country. When you go to sack percentage, K-State's defense actually is, I think, 45th nationally at 7.1%.
Because teams are throwing on them so much more because nobody can really run on K-State.
Yeah. Now, I will say pressure rate's an even better stat if I haven't pulled that, so I'm sorry. But K-State got, there were, how many times did K-State get pressure on Shedeur Sanders in Colorado and not get the sack? They rushed the throw.
And with some of the pass defense numbers, part of it is K-State hasn't been good enough there. Part of it's also they're taking on a lot of volume when it comes to the pass because teams are bailing on the run against K-State.
That's true.
Okay, good lowdown on West Virginia. Time for some quick hitters. All right, Cole, this is your time to shine. I know typically we think of the opponent preview being that, but this is even more your time to shine because I'm about to ask the question. And I know you were going back and forth with everybody in the Discord about this. Shout out to our Discord community, patreon.com/3maw, if you'd like to join the Discord and get extra bonus content. To pair with Avery Johnson on this team, Cole, you can have Prime Deuce or Prime DJ Giddens. Who are you taking?
I mean, that's really timely. Did you just put this in after you saw the Discord discussion yesterday? Or
it probably sparked my memory, a little bit, or like just
people, but it's been a conversation the last few weeks too, just in everywhere I've seen it, kind of.
Which I'll be fascinated to hear DY's thoughts too, because I felt like people weren't even like giving me they heard me say it on the show with Curry yesterday, and I felt like a lot of the folks thought it was kind of a ridiculous discussion by me to assume that.
I don't think it's a ridiculous discussion. I think it's pretty close at this point. Like you said, DJ Giddens is going to. What was the number? He's going to get on less carries than Deuce.
Get to 1,000 yards.
He's on pace. He's at 786 right now, averaging 7.3 yards per carry through 6 games. Darren Sproles is the fastest running back in school history to 1,000 yards. He did it in his 10th game on his 159th carry. DJ has 108 carries. If you extrapolate 7.3 yards per rush that DJ is averaging and give him 51 more carries to get to 159 on the season, he's at 1,178 yards on the ground.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's definitely a worthy discussion, especially since DJ Giddens surprises so many teams as a pass catcher as well. Really, the only number that is not inflated enough to be in the stratosphere of both Darren Sproles and Deuce Vaughn is touchdowns, because for some reason he's not getting in the end zone because everyone else gets to clean up what DJ does, essentially.
Okay, and so DY, at that point, I was getting crushed on, how can you compare him the touchdown number? 43 touchdowns for Deuce to 22 all around for DJ. Yeah. And I said that, look, I get touchdowns are how you win football games, but I consider touchdowns to be a bit of a fluky stat with running backs. It's not DJ's fault.
Yeah. Because he's not getting the ball inside the 5. They've thrown it to the tight end several times in that case because they go off play action because they know teams are going to be crashing on DJ. So they're just taking what the defense gives them. And another thing is like DJ, but even last year has always had a kind of another running back there to help shoulder the burden with him. Deuce and Darren Sproles were kind of bell cows.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think Deuce actually, when it comes to yards or rushes per game, probably higher than DJ. He had to bear more of the brunt of everything. There was a lot on Deuce Vaughn's shoulders.
I'll say this. I think Deuce Vaughn probably meant more to the Kansas State teams that he was on, but I think I would take DJ Giddens over him.
I'm giving a slight. I mean, we have to preface this. We obviously love Deuce Vaughn. We're comparing great.
Deuce's tweet during the game on Saturday night. He is well aware of what DJ is doing.
Yeah, we're comparing greatness here. I mean, two of the best running backs in K-State football history. But just to add more credence to the argument, DJ is now averaging 6 yards per carry in his career, and that's on over 400 attempts on the ground, right, or close to 400. The school record for yards per attempt in a career is Darren Sproles at 6.11. DJ is number 2. The number third back, Alex Barnes at 5.71. We're talking about
that last year. That's funny because everyone's like Alex Barnes. Well, what we kind of failed to remember sometimes is Alex Barnes last year. I think it was Bill Snyder's last season too. It was kind of a monster season for him.
Yeah, and he got off to, I think it was his freshman year, he averaged over 8 yards per carry, and we were complaining he wasn't getting the ball nearly enough.
They wouldn't give him the ball. That's back to your good old, everybody please open your Dana Dimmel complaint file and reach back into that one.
I remember when he ran for like 250 at Waco.
Yeah, I would say, so to answer your question, John, I'm taking DJ. I love Deuce. I'd be thrilled with either one. But I'll give a slight lean to DJ, and I'll throw this in too. And I actually didn't even see the outline before, but I had pulled this. So DJ last year ranked number 12 in the country with 40 rushes of 10 or more yards. He had 7 rushes of 20 or more yards last season. This year, through 6 games, he has 10 rushes of 20 or more yards. He ranks number 3 in the country in rushes of over 20 or more yards. He's got 3 more than he had all of last season, and he's done it in 7 less games. All right, so then let's go down the list here. He has 6 rushes of 30 or more yards. That ranks number 3 in the country. His street carries of 40 or more yards this year ranks number 4 in the country in a tie. To put it in perspective, Deuce Vaughn in 2022 had 13 rushes of 20 or more yards in 14 games, and he had 7 rushes of 30 or more yards in 14 games. DJ has 10 of 20 plus through 6, and he has 6 of 30 plus through 6. He just needs 1 more to tie Deuce in 7 less games.
Yeah, it always felt like Deuce was more explosive in the passing game than he was the rushing game.
Yeah, I mean, that was a large part of the argument, John, like you saw on the Discord, was passing game. And I think DJ is a really nice receiving running back. He's not at the level of Deuce, but...
Yeah, but the gap's not big enough for me to change my mind. But But Deuce was more explosive at passing.
You're getting crushed on that part, Cole. That was the part where I saw people really coming in, was the receiving threat out of the backfield, and people were bringing up, DJ just dropped one last week. I was like, okay, guys, DJ Giddens pretty damn good that was
also like the only time I remember him dropping a ball, just like when he fumbled against BYU. It's the only time I remember fumbling a ball.
I mean, the UCF game last year, DJ had like 2 spectacular catches where he had to twist and turn in traffic, made the catch, and still ran for yards.
He also had the big catch on the final drive that set up the Avery touchdown pass to Jace Brown.
And don't forget to play the Tulane wheel route, like Curry had mentioned. Like, that's a hard catch to make. A running back going on the sideline over the shoulder. I don't know. Deuce, I would say Deuce is a better pass catching back. Deuce was but DJ is a really good receiving running back too in itself. And then I would also say Deuce was a really good running back, run blocking running back for his size, especially. But DJ is on another level when it comes to protection, pass pro, and then also just lead blocker type.
Colorado.
Well, did he miss a couple there? Well,
he missed a handful against Colorado.
Well, all right, bad time for me to bring that up. I just, obviously he's a big kid, so he's gonna.
The blitz in general was a bit of a struggle against Colorado.
All right, guys, disregard. Love you on the Discord, guys. Love you, calm. Good for another. Everybody that was disagreeing with me, I was just a little offended. You guys were, just kind of scoffing at my argument.
Yeah, it's not a discussion that should be dismissed. That's for sure.
I thought it was a little harsh. from the Discord
community. Thank you, John. Thank you.
Yeah. More embarrassing attempted a tackle, Shiloh Sanders on DJ Giddens or 2020 Gavin Potter on Deuce Vaughn?
You bringing that up because of Gavin Potter's tweet the other day? I think
that's probably which credit to him, actually. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, he's poking fun at himself. So it was something that I didn't think he was capable of. I'll be honest, Shiloh looked worse.
Yeah, I think I probably
collapsed on the ground.
Yeah, that was bad. I think I would probably say Gavin Potter, though. I need to rewatch that play, but just the hilarity of it and then some of the talking that was going on before leading up, I would probably lean to Gavin Potter.
I think the only reason why the Gavin Potter one gets as much of a light as it does because of the Ray Lewis comment, which is that that's why he was making fun of himself. But in terms of more hilarious tackle, I think Shiloh's attempt was far worse.
I agree. I think it's Shiloh, especially because, nobody was thinking about Gavin Potter being an NFL player. Shiloh's a guy that people are talking about being an NFL safety, and he came back this week, by the way, and said that was the worst game he's ever played in his life.
Yeah. So. And Deuce did that to a lot of people because that's what Deuce Vaughn did. That was his skill. Having DJ Giddens do it to you is a little bit different.
Cole, feel like you'll love this one as well. Who is the bigger whiner? Is it Louis Riddick after the OPI call on Tulane or Joel Klatt after the no call in Boulder on Saturday?
Joel Klatt.
Yeah, Joel Klatt won't stop about it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Where did Joel Klatt go to school again?
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
And Joel Klatt's just... he's fallen off for me over the years. I loved him early on in his broadcasting career, and I think part of it probably is he's just become so in lockstep with the Big Ten and not really paying attention to the Big 12. And I don't know. I don't love Joel Klatt anymore. Joel Klatt's a bigger whiner.
I will defend him in saying this. Yes, he's whining a bit too much about the pass interference no call for my taste, but bigger picture, I still think he is an excellent broadcaster. I love listening to him, and I think he's doing... I also love Gus. I feel like Gus has lost his fastball a little bit, so Joel Klatt has to do some work to bring that broadcast along, and he's excellent. But the problem is now, the way that college football is set up is if you are a guy that's going to be doing the biggest game of the week for Fox, you kind of have to skew into being a brand, what. And be about that's the way it is with anybody in college football now. If you're going to do it at the highest level, there's just not a lot of discussion about the Big 12 and the ACC. It's all about those top 5 to 10 brands in the Big 10 and SEC. So I think he's just kind of fallen in line with what he has to do. So I still think Joel, I still think you're very good. You just maybe put this one to bed. Go watch the highlight of when you hit a Hail Mary on K-State with 12 seconds left in 2004 to end K-State's 12-year bowl streak. Okay, it was a nice moment. Just do that, and everything will be okay.
Just like CBS, right? They were the shills for the SEC for so long, and now they're shilling for the Big Ten. So they do what the money tells them to do. That's the way that it goes. But and to your point, Gus Johnson hasn't just lost a couple off his fastball. That fastball is no longer a fastball. If you watch a Gus and Joel Klatt broadcast now, Joel has to correct him at least 10 times.
Yeah. I'm obviously a big Benetti, Brock Ewert guy when it comes to Fox broadcasts, and Brock's been on the 3-maw a couple different times. And then I will actually say the broadcast team calling this West Virginia K-State game's pretty solid. Mark Helfrich I like as an analyst. I think he's solid. And then Connor Onion's an up-and-comer. I like listening to him call games. I've heard him call a couple this year. So this is a pretty solid crew that K-State's getting in Morgantown.
Do I need to bring up another question here, another quick hitter here of Gus Johnson v. Bob Costas? Who would you rather listen to call a game? That's the way it sounds like we're going.
Gus, as long as it's not a Michigan game, because he will shill for Michigan.
Yeah, I would say Gus because at least he gives a little bit of energy still. Bob Costas puts you to sleep.
But Bob Costas got up for the Yankees, but that's Gus Johnson's problem. He will get up for Michigan, and I can't stand it.
Yeah, well, I could get that. Bob Costas sucks, man. I have a lot of great memories of him calling things in the late 90s, early 2000s, but man, you talk about a guy that's just atrocious now.
Who is your mid-season Big 12 Coach of the Year?
Kenny Dillingham.
I'd go Kalani Sitake.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one, too. I'll go Dillingham just to be different.
Iowa State fans would probably tell you Matt Campbell certainly should be a contender here, and possibly...
They've been favored in about every game, and I know doesn't have to be the criteria, but they're not playing over their heads necessarily. So that's why I probably wouldn't go Matt Campbell, though his name did come to the front of my mind when you first said it. I think Kenny Dillingham's probably the right answer. We didn't expect much from BYU, and they're undefeated. There was a universe where we all thought Arizona State could be the worst team in the Big 12. And they have recruiting restrictions that they're still dealing with right now. a complete circus on campus with the leadership, and all he's doing is winning games. So I think he's doing it in the face of more adversity and more hurdles.
Well, Sataki definitely has better institutional support. It's not even close. Yeah. But I mean, they've been, Jake Retzloff has improved quite a bit. The defense was not great last year. It has improved by leaps and bounds. And the more that you watch them, they did the same thing to Arizona that they did to K-State, where it's like, look, this, we can feel like that game in Provo was a little bit fluky, and perhaps it was, but they keep doing it to people. That's a pretty damn good team. I'm gonna lean Kalani Sitake. It's a close one though, and I can just hear, because every time I put this out earlier this week, I'll get Texas Tech fans screaming at me about, what about Joey McGuire, who's at the top of the Big 12 standings? And he gave up 51 to Abilene Christian, and we're a 2-point conversion away from losing that game and got blasted at Washington State. I can't hear that argument, and have had a pretty manageable Big 12 schedule to start the year so far. So
and now they got TCU and Baylor coming up, so it's still.
Yeah. Well, look, Joe, it's going to keep Joey in the discussion. He did a hell of a job to steady the ship. They had injury and they lost. I'm not saying
they're 5-1, right? They're 5-1, right?
They are.
Yeah. He'll probably be 7-1 the way TCU and Baylor are playing.
Interesting. Baylor's only 6.5-point dogs at Tech.
Baylor hasn't got blown out a ton. They've been in games. They're fighting.
They were up on Iowa State 14-0.
Yeah.
Then got beat by 22 though. So.
Yeah. And they hung around with Colorado. They hung around with BYU too, right?
Yep. Yeah, 30. Yeah, they got down big and then came back, had a chance.
I asked this in part because Colin Cowherd had a great, I think he got like freezing takes exposed, but as USC was in the process of pummeling Penn State, he loves to talk a little bit of stuff to Oklahoma fans, which I do too. Who were, they run down Lincoln Riley, and they're now dealing with Brent Venables, and, they're in year 3 and they can't score more than 3 points in Red River because they put all their chips on Jackson Arnold and he sucks, and now they're playing a true freshman. But Cole, who would you rather be right now? Not who would you rather have, but who would you rather be right now? Lincoln Riley or Brent Venables?
Well, I'd rather be Lincoln Riley because, first of all, I think he's got said on solid verbal that he's got an $88 million buyout, which I haven't fact-checked.
God.
But if that's the case, if that's the case, I'd love to be him for that. But also because, at least he's at USC where the fan base is a little more apathetic. There's a little more chill being in the LA atmosphere versus being in the SEC and being in Oklahoma where the fans are crazed. And, Lincoln Riley's going to be dealing with a ton of pressure and scrutiny. I'm sure he's got a big buyout too, by the way, but not nearly at that level. So I'd rather be Lincoln Riley.
I'd rather be Lincoln Riley too. I also think the path back is probably easier for him if either one is going to revive themselves, their current tenure. I think he's more capable of doing that at USC because he's always going to have quarterbacks that want to play for him, and having a quarterback that's pretty special is typically a really good formula to have, even if you're an average coach. So, makes me think along those lines. I think about Ed Orgeron. You got Joe Burrow having a career year, and he made a career out of that and got fired a couple of years later because he didn't have Joe Burrow anymore. So I would go Lincoln Riley. I tweeted this. I don't know if you guys saw it. I said Lincoln Riley has a worse record after 32 games at USC than Clay Helton. And then I also said Oklahoma was solid under Brent Venables when Jeff Lebby was the offensive coordinator. Not special, but solid. Then they let Dylan Gabriel walk, hired Seth Luttrell, benched Jackson Arnold, who was supposed to be their hero, and now they have a quarterback that can't throw a forward pass and an offensive coordinator that is washed.
Well, yeah, so to your point, first of all, Lincoln Riley has Big 12 championships next to his name. He's proven himself as a head coach at Oklahoma. Brent Venables hasn't done anything to prove himself. Last year, 10-2 or whatever, 10-3, but the other 2 years now look more like last year, what's more of an outlier. So, Lincoln Riley's got more of a resume by far. And then to your point, what a massive coaching mistake to bench Jackson Arnold after 3 games.
And hire Seth Luttrell. So now he has a quarterback that can't throw a forward pass and an offensive coordinator is washed. I'll put it this way. This is not like the exception for Oklahoma this year. This is going to become more of the norm as long as Venables is there, since they're now in the SEC. Whereas if you told me Lincoln Riley and USC win 10 games next year, I wouldn't be totally stunned. But if you told me Brent Venables and Oklahoma win 10 games next year, I'd probably fall out of my chair.
Yeah, now Jackson Arnold's obviously going to probably end up in the portal after all this. So you chase off your 5-star quarterback when your offensive coordinator is probably the bigger problem. Now you're Oklahoma, so the saving grace for them is they'll be able to buy probably a big-time quarterback in the portal. But
will it matter? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, they got all their coordinators.
How is it that,
they should have lost to Auburn.
Brent Venables, you could hire almost anybody you would think as your offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. He winds up with Seth Luttrell. Like Iowa State loses Nate Shieldhouse, and they go like in-house and just hire a guy who looks like he's excellent so far as an offensive coordinator. Like how does that happen?
Matt Wells was also at Oklahoma, and Kansas State got him. And so both of those guys got hired, but yeah, weird.
Lead pipe block of the week. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to give you my pick. You should fade it because I am now 1-5. I picked Utah last week over Arizona State.
Speaking of disasters.
Not looking great, although I think I would have stood a better chance had they just played Isaac Wilson instead of Cam Rising, who's now done. And the conversation will turn toward, does he get an 8th year of eligibility? That is real. That is a real headline. Cole is now 3-3. You had Cincy UCF last week, so you hit on that. UCF was actually a home favorite. They, speaking of quarterback changes, tried to do that unsuccessfully. And DY is 4-2. He barely missed on the Pitt Cal game.
Yeah, I picked 2.5. And they won by 2. Like what? 17-15.
Yeah, that is tough. My pick this week, I'm taking Arkansas plus 2.5 at home against LSU. Big win last week for LSU. Letdown spot going on the road. Arkansas just beat Tennessee at home, and honestly probably should be 5-1. That Oklahoma State game, I think that's one they'll look back at the end of the year and be like, how the hell did we let that get away? Outgain them by 250 yards. So that's, I think, an undervalued Arkansas team against an LSU team that's been very flawed and will be coming off the high of the win that they just had, where they led for 0 seconds of the game, by the way, just scoring at the end to win in overtime. So I think Arkansas wins that game.
Yeah, I would probably echo that. I'm taking Louisville at home plus 4.5 against Miami. I mean, my sample size on Miami is the last 2 times I've watched them play, they should have lost to Virginia Tech, and they should have lost to Cal. So why would I trust Miami to go to Louisville, which was ranked just a couple weeks ago? And
they're playing bad football, though.
I know.
Yeah,
but
I had Louisville as I think statistically now the worst defense in the ACC.
Never mind. I'm not going to take Louisville then. I factually didn't do a ton of research into this game, but saw a home team getting points against Miami. I know what I've seen.
Miami struggled on the road, so you're not terrible.
I'll ride with it. I guess it's a plus 4.5, but that's actually good info, DY, so I don't tie real money to that game, perhaps, which, by the way, then makes the lock of the week look fraudulent if I'm telling you guys I'm not going to tie real money to what I consider a lock. So anyways, that's my pick. I've gotten 2 in a row, guys. K-State against OSU and Cincinnati winning outright against UCF.
Louisville, yeah, they lost to Notre Dame, lost to SMU, should have lost to Virginia, should have lost to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I mean, part of me, I saw they only lost by 7 at Notre Dame and thought, well,
No, it's not terrible because Miami struggled on the road. Guess what? I'm going Hawks. I think they've played close games all year, right? Now they're playing a team that they can actually maybe get some separation on. I think they cover the 6.5. I think they're due, obviously, but like it just feels like we're kind of, and they're coming off a bye. Like I think KU wins pretty handily over Houston.
Well, DY, you just used a Kansas logo on this broadcast, and based on what I'm seeing here lately, you might be getting some sort of cease and desist popping up on your doorstep from Travis Goffin here pretty soon. So let's be careful with using the Kansas logos, although I guess you were saying something positive. So it seems like the issue seems to be using the logo and saying something negative. So
yeah,
Travis, it was positive, okay? It was positive. No C&Ds.
Houston got up, beat TCU. As much as it's fun to make fun of KU, like they're better than their record indicates. I know that's annoying to hear, but they find ways to lose, and this one just feels like a one that they can kind of run away with.
I mean, they certainly should. I saw, was it Message Board Geniuses? Where did I see someone sending me? Oh, maybe actually DY. Maybe it was the KSO thread. But there was
like 5 million page views.
Screenshots of message board conversation about how depressed they thought Lance sounds at the press conferences right now, just like very, low energy, not bringing a very high vibe. I am not. The problem is I did that with Kansas like 5 times this year, and was like, they're going to break through. This is the time they'll win. So I had to check out on Kansas for that. We'll see.
They're going to do it once. It might as well be against Houston.
Yeah. Okay. Prediction time. I'll be honest. Like I feel more comfortable with this game than I did last week with Colorado. I am going to pick K-State to win. Now, I know in the Discord, I believe it was our good friend John Curry was like, yeah, well, everybody's, we did this with BYU too. Like, oh, it'll be fine. They turn it over, whatever. Look, I picked BYU as a loss at the beginning of the year. I saw trouble coming with that game. I also picked this game as a loss at the beginning of the year. Man, watching West Virginia, I just feel like they'll shoot themselves in the foot enough that K-State's going to be able to get out of there with a win. So I'm taking K-State 27-21.
Cool. I'm taking, I think we all picked K-State to lose this game before the season.
We did.
DY and I had K-State at 6-1 through 7 games. John had them at 5-2. Let's hope DY and I are right with the record, and let's hope we were all wrong with the preseason prediction. I'm taking K-State to win this game 31-24. I think K-State will, hopefully have some bigger plays in the passing game. As Parker on our Discord was also saying that West Virginia runs a lot of zone when it comes to their pass defense. Colorado was a ton of man, so we'll see maybe some different pass concepts out of K-State's offense. But I just like K-State in this matchup. I feel better about it than I thought I would, which kind of gives me anxiety. Honestly, I felt better about Colorado after, a couple days going into the game because everybody was picking Colorado. And now I feel like everybody's so confident on K-State again. Gives me a little bit of anxiety, but I think K-State will ultimately come out with a win, 31-24.
I also feel a little bit better, but I think it's going to be a dogfight. Some of the matchups are good. The K-State passing game is coming around. West Virginia is really bad against the pass. West Virginia wants to run the ball. Kansas State's really good against the run. So some of the matchups just kind of align pretty well for Kansas State in that regard. I think they have the better coaching staff. We go back to it, like we said, West Virginia kind of likes to shoot their foot off. K-State did that once this year, but they've also bounced back and showed that that's not who they are since then. They made the plays instead of shoot their foot off against Colorado. So as long as that carries over, I think they win at West Virginia, but I think it's going to be uncomfortable. 24-23.
Another night to be another bad night to be Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon in my house. Probably another good old night kick. Going to be absorbing that. So yeah, man, 24-23. Then that will be a lot of Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon flowing down the pipes. DY. But hey, nice show. Not bad for a guy that wasn't wanted on 3-maw apparently.
In terms of like locks, I didn't do K-State one. But I always do this with 2 teams that want to run the ball. It typically goes under, and I think the total is like at 55. I think I would go under that.
Yeah, it's 54.5 is what I'm seeing right now. K-State favored by 3.5, minus 140 on the
I think that's the best bet of this particular game.
Yeah. Great work, Justice James. Thank you for your service today on the show. We appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you to all of our great sponsors. Cole with a nice extra little shout out there. We appreciate everybody.
Yeah, that wasn't directed at them.
Holiday, Alenko, everybody, thank you. Nick Springer behind the scenes as well. Appreciate all of you. You can join our Discord community at patreon.com/3maw. We'd love to see you there and keep the conversation going all week long. That'll do it for another edition of 3maw. Take care, everybody. Enjoy K-State, West Virginia, and we will talk to you soon.